Poised for Exit is the weekly show for business owners and advisors who want smarter strategies, stronger companies, and better exit outcomes. I'm your host, Julie Keys, award-winning certified exit planner, speaker, and lifelong entrepreneur, helping private company owners build value, plan well, and exit on their own terms. Every exit has real stakes. That's why Poised for Exit brings in top experts to share practical insights that help owners grow value, reduce risk, and create stronger outcomes. Now, let's jump in. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Poised for Exit podcast show. Our featured guest today is the founder and president of an estate planning firm that specializes in working with business owners. She also happens to be a fellow CEPA, so you're going to want to hear her story, and we'll be back in a moment.
Most business owners wait too long to plan their exit, and it can cost them. By the time they're ready, tax-saving opportunities may be long gone. The CPAs at John A. Knutson & Company help you plan early so you can maximize value, minimize taxes, and exit on your terms. With over 100 years of guiding ownership transitions, including buy-sell, succession, and ESOPs, we know the best outcomes transpire from planning ahead. If exiting your business is a future possibility, start now. Visit jakcpa.com. That's jakcpa.com.
Thinking about selling your business in the next few years? Don't wait to start planning. I've seen too many business owners wait too long and regret it. Freedom Financial Partners are financial advisors who specialize in exit planning for business owners, helping you reduce tax surprises, protect what you've built, and quantify how much you need from the sale. Their proven process helps you think beyond your business so you can move forward with clarity and confidence. The longer you wait, the fewer options you may have. Download your free financial readiness assessment today at ffpforme.com/exit. That's ffpforme.com/exit. Hey, everybody. We are here in the studio. Welcome to Poised for Exit with Kari Voorhees, who is a founder and president of Voorhees Law Group. And Kari is an estate planner and a CEPA, like I said in the show opener. And I'm just absolutely thrilled to have her on the show. Kari, welcome to Poised for Exit.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie.
You are so awesome.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, there's a lot that we could talk about today, but we're going to try and just focus on a few things. And we're going to start, obviously, like we always do, with how did you get here, right? I know that your origin story is super powerful, and your dad was inspirational in, convincing you to work with business owners. And here you are working with business owners in estate planning, which is so important. So we'd just like to have you start with your story.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How long do we have? No.
We got all kinds of time.
So, I guess I can say the law is my second career, right? I was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years. Always wanted to go to law school. The stories go that when I was young, that's all I talked about was wanting to be a lawyer. So after my kids got a little bit older and I felt like a chauffeur and a chef, I said to my husband, I'm going to law school. And he was like, what? Okay. So I did it.
Yeah.
With 3 kids in tow, part-time night. And I went ahead and did it. I had some health issues in the past that kind of forced me to, if you have a dream, just go for it. What do you have to lose? And that was my catalyst. And then my family supporting me was definitely the best part.
For sure.
So I graduated and I really, you go into law school and you have an idea of what you want to be. I wanted to be a DA. Then getting out of law school, I was like, well, I still want to be at all of my kids' games. That doesn't really work. So I had an opportunity to purchase a law practice, and it happened to be estate planning. And I did that in 2013. And I've been doing it ever since. It was an area of law I didn't know that I would love. It was a class I enjoyed in law school, but I didn't really understand what it was. Learning about the technicality of estate plans is different than actually doing the estate plan. And I will say that it's been the biggest blessing and my favorite area of law. And I don't think I'll ever do anything else.
Wow. That says a lot.
Yeah.
And your dad was inspirational as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So when I started with my practice, I noticed speaking to my clients that they all had something in common. The majority of them were small business owners. My father owned a business for well over 30 years, a trucking company, and he was very good at what he did. He was a fabulous business owner, very relational. So all of his relationships were formed on the golf course, or in Vegas, betting at the sports book, one or the other. And he just had this fabulous way about him and a fabulous relationship with every person. And then in 2006, he was diagnosed with brain cancer.
Mm.
His business was thriving. It was larger than it had ever been. And he panicked. He was really worried about his family. He has 9 children. He had just a few grandchildren at the time, but he had his siblings working for him. He had his kids working for him. And his
Wow.
thought was, I have brain cancer. I'm going to die. So immediately he sold his business and it didn't go well. He sold it to a competitor that wasn't the most upstanding. Quite frankly, it was his nemesis. It was kind of his main competitor, someone that just wasn't the best.
Mm.
And the deal that was structured was his friends. His friends structured it. He made his relationships on the golf course, or in Vegas, and they were good friends, but he had a workers' comp attorney draft his sales agreement and his purchase agreement. He had
boy.
his enrolled agent handle the tax portion of it. There was no one qualified. And because he had a diagnosis, and I always say that we talk about the D's, and I'm like, don't ever forget diagnosis because that makes the person panic.
Of
And he
course.
sold the business. He survived, and then he lost everything because liability went with him instead of stayed with him. So he was sued by multiple contracts that the new owner did not follow through on.
Wow.
There was a earnout, and because a lot of his clients weren't really happy with the new owner turned around and sued him. And he basically went from, a business that was worth quite a bit, but he never knew how much his business was worth because he never had it valued before he sold it. So he just panicked.
Yeah.
And when I started working with business owners and seeing that it was their livelihood and wrapped up in them, I realized that I need to focus more on my business owner clients, and I need to make sure that that does not happen to them and make sure that they get a team of trusted advisors, if they don't have it already, to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Wow. How much longer did your dad live after that?
So he was first diagnosed in '06 and he passed away in 2021.
Wow.
So many, many years in which he had a lot of regrets and struggled. And he shouldn't have had to struggle because he had a
No.
very good business.
Yes. Right. It sounds like he had a really loving family to support him.
Yes.
And it seems like when there's trials like that, we can take and turn that around and impact others, right? I have,
Yes.
yeah, I've experienced some similar adversity in my life that really has driven me to become the advisor that I am. So super inspirational. I love the work that you're doing, and I can understand, the impetus behind it for sure.
Yeah.
So, and your firm's belief of planning is worth a pound to cure, obviously, right? Because you lived it, but you've seen other situations clearly since you've been doing this for 14 or 15 years now. What problems do you see then when other problems besides when business owners postpone estate planning? They don't like to talk about death, right? And that's what we have to talk about when we're talking about estate planning. But there are things that force them to act, right? We talked about the 5 Ds. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So what I find is a theme with my business owners is that they're not thinking past that day and their business and running their business. It appears that no one's had a conversation with them about what's next. And they all believe fully that they're going to be running that business until their deathbed, I guess. And many of them feel that then the business just goes away without realizing that if you do retire and you've been living off of the income of your business, or you've been operating through your business, many are lifestyle businesses, where does all of that extra income that you've been earning, where are you going to get it from?
Right.
So I've had quite a few people that have come in towards the end of their tenure where they want to retire. and then they realize that they can't. And all they really needed to do was backtrack 5 or 10 years and have a conversation. So I find that sometimes with my older clients, they're in this position to where they want to get out, but they can't. And they just realized that they can't. And then with my younger clients, it's me beginning that conversation so they're aware of it.
Good. Early planning for sure. And now, like I said in the show opener, you are also a CEPA like me, and you're approaching it from a different angle, but that has to impact how you're practicing as a lawyer. So how do you tie the two together, and how has that impacted your practice as a CEPA?
Yeah. So for one thing that, it was easy for me to learn the law. It was difficult for me to learn how to run my business. And my CEPA program, honestly, I came back and I said, I've learned so much for my clients, but oh my gosh, I learned so much for me.
Yeah.
And I found that that really impacted me as a business owner to understand more clearly what I needed to do, what it meant, how to run my business. So that was one thing that really helped me. And then being able to bring that in. So it impacts to where when I meet with an estate planning client that owns a business, I really focus on estate planning our first meeting or two and get that done, because
Yeah.
an estate plan, even if you don't talk about the business, is still very important.
Yes.
Then I always bring them back and ask them to bring me all of their corporate documents, all of, anything they have for their corporation. And then we have another engagement and talk about their business. It's not always about, when are you going to exit? When are you going to leave? It's really about, do we have everything set up? Do we have everything in place? Do you know what's set up? Simple things like, do you know the basis of your stock? Because now you have this really, really big basis, and it
Yes.
shows here that your stock was a penny. So we have a problem. And they don't really understand. Well, I just put it on there because LegalZoom did it. And it's like, wonderful, but let's have a conversation about what that means. So it really ties together and crosses, because then we're able to talk about if you're incapacitated, if you're deceased, if you want to retire. Let's not worry about all the major D's that could happen. What if you just want to get out before you're 80? How are we going to do this? Who's going to be there? So it really, the paths just cross kind of naturally.
Are you finding any difference between the generations and willingness to plan and not being afraid to have these conversations?
I am actually.
Mm-hmm.
Our
No
lovely
surprise.
baby boomers, who are my favorite generation, by the way, they don't even want to hear it. They don't want to talk about it. They
Yeah.
are staying. I'm working with a business owner who is well into his 80s. And he told me that we'd talk about him transitioning out in about 10 years. I'm like, okay. He doesn't want to have the conversation. And as an estate planner, as I'm helping, I'm noticing so many red flags. Half the stock is still in his father's trust, who passed away 10 years ago. The
Wow.
business building is still in his father's trust, who passed away 10 years ago. There's so many issues, and he doesn't want to address them. So, but my younger clients tend to be so open about it, because what did I hear someone say? And I think my daughter said this. The baby boomers lived to work, and our younger generation works to live. So they're more open to it because they want to be able to live. So their business is a means to an end. They might have multiple. They look to build a business to sell. So they're more open to it for sure.
Well, that's awesome. Probably makes your job a little bit easier, at least in a few years anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And you guys also provide concierge services, so
We
bedside
do.
services, right? Yeah.
We
So
do.
tell us about that. I know you've got conservatorship and guardianship as part of your practice and probate. So let's
Yeah.
dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. So honestly, we do that a little bit less, mostly because of time.
Of
But
course.
we do arrange to have people help out. But oftentimes I do have situations where someone is
Yeah.
just in a really bad situation and they didn't plan, and they're really struggling and wanting to do something right away. So we definitely will go to a hospital, to someone's home to just have the conversation and help them out. I think it's important. I won't do it all the time, but it is very important, and especially with business owners. I just recently had a situation where there's a business owner who he is attempting to sell. We're working on selling, and he just got a diagnosis of an issue with his cognitive impairment, and it tends to be kind of ramping up. So I definitely have gone, and he can still travel and do stuff, but I've definitely gone to him quite a few times recently because we now, what wasn't a crisis mode, even though they just wanted to retire and enjoy life, is now a crisis. So there we are. So some life is unplannable, and you could be doing all of the right things, and
Yeah.
then something occurs in the middle of it.
That's why we're supposed to eat dessert first.
Exactly.
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard. Like my dad has Parkinson's disease, and part of that has been just cognitive decline, right? And you can see the frustration because he's always been an inspiration to me as a professional advisor his whole life, and so client centric. And yeah, it's really hard. You know, you wanna help him get the words out. And
Yeah.
he knows that they're there. He just can't get them out. And then the feet won't work. So, you know, he used to be so active and everything. And now he's not at all and can't be.
Yeah. That's so
Yeah.
hard.
So trying to do what we can to provide him with some kind of quality of life, right? And I think that, yeah. And for you and the work that you're doing, even though they're not your family, you kind of treat them that way.
I do. I get a little bit attached
Yeah.
sometimes to some of my clients. And I also think that when we can personally relate to what our clients are going through,
Yeah.
it's just a different level of
All day.
relationship.
Yeah.
And with my dad, I'm very protective of my business owners. And,
Mm,
much like you, I care for a mom who has dementia. So
mm,
I deal with so many clients and people's parents that go through that. And that's a
mm,
whole other line of, how do we protect? They're vulnerable. They could be taken advantage of. What could we do? That's a whole nother line in our business that's very prevalent right now,
mm-hmm.
both for just regular business owners, like my business owner that just found out he has an issue, and just normal estate planning, whether it be conservatorship or, how do we care for mom now that she can't do anything, can't talk? Who is the person that's going to step up? And then are they doing everything right? So both of those. And I find that adds a different level. And I think that's why I love
Mm-hmm.
this area of law so much, because I do find myself to be relational. So I'm dealing with people in their most vulnerable times, sometimes their hardest times. It's really bizarre to be like one of the first phone calls for someone that you don't really know when something awful happens.
Yeah.
It's a different type of trust, and
Right.
I love it. So I'm happy I stumbled upon this area of law because I don't know if I would have chose it myself.
Yeah, I chose you, really.
Yeah, it kind of chose me. Yep.
Yeah,
And
yeah, for
and it knew
sure.
what it was doing.
Yeah, 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 you're a perfect fit for it. So I had a client situation recently, actually a new one, so we're just getting to know each other. So it's a family business, just second generation. So there's children in the business. It's in the trades and doing well, profitable. You've got generational differences in how things should happen, right? So there's that background noise that we're working through. But on the estate planning side, one of my questions to them was, tell me the status of your estate plan and when was the last time you had it updated, assuming that they had one, right? And I always assume they had one. I don't want to assume they don't, even though many times they don't, right?
Right.
Because I
Correct.
want them to understand how important it is that they do. So if I'm assuming that they have one, like you would have, I don't know, a plan to escape if there's a fire,
Your fire ladder.
right? Anyway, he said, we put a will together a long time ago when our kids were really young. And that was the last time that we visited that conversation. And these folks are in their early 70s. And I said, it would be a good time now for you
Yeah,
to revisit that and complete the process of your estate plan.
that's
So,
great.
so talk to me about that. If that were your client and they came to, and I brought them to you, right? What would be your process and what would be your questions and how would we go about getting them from that to where they really need to be?
To the estate plan. Yeah. So that is very common.
Yes, right.
I just signed an estate plan for a couple yesterday who were well in their 80s
Mm.
and they have quite a few assets and they had nothing. And they're a blended family. So,
Oh my
even
goodness.
more so
Right.
issues, right? So, for me, when an advisor brings a client in for us, first of all, we always want to make sure if the advisor wants to be a part of it because, you know, CEPA, everything we've learned that we
Mhm.
need to have multiple people at our table. And when we're doing an estate plan, it's not just a document. Anything LegalZoom can give you a document. Documents are a dime a dozen. It's the planning and the thoughtfulness and the questions and the counseling that goes with it. So I always like to see if the advisor wants to be a part of it because you need everybody at your table. We've learned that,
Mhm.
right? We need everybody at our table. And then we start questions. We have a worksheet that we've created that gets me started that the client can fill out. And then when I look at that, that leads the conversation. And I have certain questions on there that are my red flags. So I know to dive deeper.
Mhm.
And then we meet and we just talk and we talk about their plan. And oftentimes what people want is great, but it's the reality of how it plays out when they're gone. And I think that's an important step that some estate planners miss. I see some documents that are convoluted and just written in such a way to where this realistically can't even play out this way. Like it's just not going to happen. So I really try to bring real world, like this is great what you want, but this is what it could look like when you're gone.
Mm.
So how can we structure this to meet your goal and what you want done, but to make sure that your family doesn't have either a lawsuit or a mess or confusion?
Yes.
Then the other thing I always think about is I get a lot of trust that I just don't understand what they mean. So I try to
Mm.
think about if I'm not the one reading this, if I'm not the one administering this, is someone else, another attorney, going to understand what I wrote? So it's really about making it as simple and easy to carry out as possible. Even if it's complicated, there's ways we could word things and do things that are very simple. So it's really about conversation, and it's typically one or two, and then we get the documents signed and in place.
Wow. So you can move that fast.
Yeah.
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 Because you have the
I,
right conversations.
exactly. I mean, our conversation might be an hour, both of them. Some people it takes one, some people it takes two or three, but typically we get it done. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. We focus and I push them a little. Sometimes people are very on the fence about what they want and it's our job to, let's these trusts are revocable. So let's get something to protect you. And if we're going to
Mm.
hold off on one document, let's get the others and then build this one. So we can do it in steps as well, but it's important to just get it done.
Yeah, and that really, it kind of reminds me of a couple of situations that I know of where the attorney did their work. In fact, I used to work with a law firm years ago before I started exit planning, and I was just doing business consulting and I was helping them grow. They were opening a bunch of offices, and we were trying to figure out what does growth look like? How do we succeed? Some of the work that they did was estate planning. And they would get their clients to the point where they were reviewing documents, but then they didn't sign them and they never returned and it just kind of dropped and
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and that does happen,
Sure.
not often, but that does happen.
Hmm.
I'm signing a trust next week for someone who started this process a year ago.
Okay.
And it was because she has family members with substance abuse issues and
Mm,
she just needed time to figure out how to handle it.
mm,
And I had given her options, multiple options a year ago, and she wasn't ready
mm.
to make a decision on him. And now she is. So sometimes it is going to take time, and you just have to let people process and deal with it because estate planning, you dive in about relationships between family members. It comes out if
Mm-hmm.
someone doesn't like an in-law and they're worried. I can't tell you how many times people have come in to change things because one of their children married someone and they're worried now. So it's all very, I mean, the stuff I learned,
I
it's
bet.
all very
Yeah.
relational. So
Right.
you just have to give them time to process those relationships and figure it out, but also gently nudge them to make sure they know it's important.
That's a really delicate balance, I'm sure, right? Because you've got the whole technical side of the work that you do that has to be, super accurate and complete, and then you have the softer side where you have to be empathetic and read into some of the things that they're saying or not saying, right? And it sounds to me like you just have an amazing balance of both, Kari.
I mean, I try. I'm sure I
Yeah.
fail a lot, but I
Yeah.
try. I
Yeah.
definitely try. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to dive in a little bit more on that client that you just mentioned, but we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
This is Andy Kosamba, president of Calhoun Companies. We understand that selling your business is a big deal. Since 1908, Calhoun Companies has been confidently connecting buyers and sellers. From small family shops to large corporations, our expert brokers walk with you and guide you every step of the way, whether you're looking to retire or simply for a fresh start. If you're curious what your business could sell for, or if you're ready to start the process, head to calhouncompanies.com for a free and confidential consultation. Calhoun Companies, the confident choice for buyers and sellers.
My name is Todd Crow, and I'm the president of the Twin Cities Exit Planning Chapter. If you're a business owner and advisor and want to learn more about the world of exit planning, you're invited to visit the Twin Cities chapter of the Exit Planning Institute. You can expect top-level education delivered by subject matter experts at every monthly meeting. Grow your network and draw from the learning that could be a game changer for your business or your practice. There's no pressure to become a member, so come and see what the buzz is all about. Our meetings are held the second Wednesday of the month, 7:30 to 9 a.m. See the show notes for more information and registration links.
All right, we're back in the studio with Kari Voorhees. Kari, let's talk about that situation that you mentioned where they waited a year to sign the trust documents. What if, now this client actually completed, but you maybe have had clients in the past where, we talked about before, where they started the process, they didn't finish, and then things didn't end well because they did not have things in place.
Yeah. So I actually had that with a business owner. Oddly enough, it was a dentist. So they had looked into estate planning and they were young. They were younger. They were mid 40s. Wife was sole owner of her business, of her dentist practice, breadwinner. Her husband worked, but pretty much worked part-time to raise the kids while the wife owned her dentist office. And she passed away of a heart attack at like 46.
Goodness.
We never did their estate plan. We never talked about what to do with her business because she was kind of waiting because she was so busy. And now here we have a dental office who's left to run it, who's left to wrap things up. We had a woman who had a heart attack but was on life support, no documents in place of who makes decisions.
Sure.
And no trust or anything, and 3 small children.
Wow.
Not small-ish, elementary school and high school, but still young children.
Yes.
And she was a breadwinner. And she wasn't deceased yet. So she never finished, and it just created a ginormous mess in many areas of life because once it was determined that she wasn't going to live, husband wanted to take her off of life support, but the family didn't. They were traveling from a different country to come say goodbye, so they wanted her kept on. That created a conflict that had to be worked through.
Wow.
And then we had to deal with the business. And what do we do with a business that the person passed away and there's nothing in charge?
So did you get involved in some of that post? Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Were you a
I
CEPA at the time too?
I was not. This was before
Okay.
I was a CEPA. So the one thing they did do is when they were going to put things off, I had recommended making the husband treasurer and putting his name on the bank account just in case something happened. I said it'd be a Band-Aid.
Yes.
I didn't know they did that because every time I would follow up with them,
I was going to just ask that. You
every
can't do
time I
anything
would
with money.
follow up
Yeah.
with them, they would kind of push me off. So I didn't think that they did anything. So I did I did. And I was like, okay, I was in full crisis mode. And he said, Kari, I did what you asked. So I have access to the bank account. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing.
Yes.
So with that access and with some of the documents that they did do for me, it was able to be handled pretty easily. We still had issues with being able to sell the business and do stuff, but he had access to the bank accounts. As the treasurer, he was able to do a few things that needed to be done with the business. So it wasn't as bad. We didn't have to go file a probate right away or, do something. We were able to do it without. So it really did help.
No.
So I was happy. I was like, oh, they really do listen sometimes.
Oh, yeah, especially in a situation like that, but how
Yeah.
devastating. Yeah.
Yes, it was awful.
So, well, let's talk about advanced planning. First of all, maybe just explain to our listeners what it entails and then maybe if there's, like protecting the owner and their wishes and the businesses, stuff like that, like you were highlighting in this client situation. But how does it make it easier when there's actually some plans in place, right?
Right. So advanced estate planning kind of goes beyond the simple estate plan. Simple isn't always simple, but just your
Yes.
general revocable estate plan. When you're dealing with advanced planning, you might have multiple layers. So you might have some LLC or corporation. It's sometimes about two things. One is asset protection, and the other is if your assets are over the estate tax limit, which, now that our estate tax limit is 30 million, not every American is over that. So estate planning can be a whole array of things. If we talk about a revocable trust, that could be changed. But when we go into advanced planning and think about irrevocable trust, there's so many different types. And it's not always needed for every business owner. But what is needed is to make sure that their plan as an estate plan coincides and aligns with their plan as a business owner. And do they have the proper corporate documents in place? Do they have a buy-sell agreement? Do they have an operating agreement? And how does that work with their estate plan? Do they match? Are they different? Does your wife hate your business partner? Because if they don't get along and you pass away and she's the trustee, she's going to have to work with him. So what do we do with that?
That could be sticky.
So for me, advanced planning is a little bit of, we might have to do some asset protection and some irrevocable trust, but oftentimes it's just making sure that everything's aligned.
Sure.
And reviewing all of the documents to make sure that they're there. Was the stock issued? If your business is on a building, this is a situation I have with one of my clients right now is he's selling his business. His mom's trust owns the building that the business is in. And he's trying to sell his business. But when his mom passes away and she's 90, her mom's trust says that everything gets split equally between 4 siblings.
Oh boy.
But he's trying to sell his business and the owner wants assurances that they're going to be able to stay in that location. So we have to go to mom and mom's estate planning attorney. And nobody thought, before I was brought in, nobody thought to look at mom's trust to see what it says. They were just operating and the business building was included. And when I was brought in and I looked at it and I said, hold on a second, what does mom's trust say? Nobody knew. I'm like, how are we structuring a deal where, there's no assurance that this person, you're going to get the trust sued and you're the trustee. My client who's selling the business is the trustee. So he has fiduciary duty issues here because
Yes.
is he self-dealing? Is he, so really to me, it's about looking at the whole picture and they all overlap and there's so many different canals and routes to go down and you just have to think about it all.
Great story. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
I so appreciate it, Kari. Thanks for all your wisdom and sharing your stories. Always nice to see you. And thank you to our listeners for joining us. Please share this episode. Join us again next time.